What I want to cover today is our plan going in, I'm going to say the next 1 year from now, which encompasses 2 trips, at least 2 dates, windows of dates. The soonest one being in September. So we have a soft go for September between me, you, Chris, and Spencer. With George involved, we've been discussing our options for having 2 vehicles to accommodate another person and what that would open us up to, because there is a trade-off you're making with 2 vehicles, but there's also perks that come with it. But we can touch on that later. What I want to go over is what the actual run of show is going to be. When we're out there, what is our plan? Where are we going to start? Where are we going to end? And what is, I guess, kind of the goal, the mission between all of us? And what is it that we're setting off to do on, this will be the 4th one. So there's, I've talked a lot with Spencer. I've talked a lot with you, with Chris. You guys have talked amongst each other, and there's been a lot of ideas. There's been a lot of places that we all want to go. It's a matter of what is the most optimal, what is the most, which ones seem like they'll provide the most exploration to them. And so we've kind of got a system down that I'm going to run by you and hear your thoughts. So we ended the 3rd expedition, which was me, you, and Spencer. And that ended our recon day being extremely successful, having found the Gold Bottom and the Stockwell. We did a soft exploring of those 2 just to see if they're legit, to make sure they don't go into a dead end after 100 feet. And we definitely, we scratched the surface, on what these mines have to offer, these Stockwell and Gold Bottom.
Yep.
I've had, on that last expedition, there were 3 mines: Stockwell, Gold Bottom, and there was one called the Ophir mine, Ophir.
Okay.
That mine that we didn't go to because we chose to go to Stockwell is in between, logistically, it is in between Stockwell and Gold Bottom. Okay. So we would take the road we took to Stockwell to get there. We'd split south. I think maybe last time we saw more structure up towards Stockwell, so we just made a decision to go there. But I did some more looking into that other mine, and it seems online as though there are substantial workings in that mine. And if we're going to go back to these 2 to really explore them, I don't see a situation personally in which after we explore those, we come back on another trip for this mine. So that being said, I want to present the idea of doing that one. I know I don't have in front of me all of the descriptions and online resources to justify it to you now, but the fact is, if once we cross this area off, as far as Stockwell and Gold Bottom, there's so much more we want to hit that it will never be enough to come back to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that.
So there's some timeline considerations there. Me and Spencer are convinced that Stockwell isn't going to take as long as we think. There's certainly a lot of exploring to do, but we feel like it's going to be somewhere in between the Mohawk and the Ruth as far as the time and technicality of it.
Which the Stockwell was the one where we separated for a short period of time?
That's correct.
Right. I can't imagine there being anything I can't imagine there being twice as much mine as we saw. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll get to where we got already very quickly. So, yeah.
I think so. And we know how to get there already. We know we have that first layer kind of mapped out. We can hit it again. It didn't take us very long to hit it anyway. So we can hit that because Chris will be with us this time, potentially George. So we'll have other people that will want to see it. We can hit that whole level, map it out for real this time. And then we can send it up that vertical. Logistically, part 1 of our trip is looking like it's going to be back in this southern area of the valley. The first portion of our trip seems it's going to start here because we know based off of our last one that this is going to be legit. After we hit this southern spot, that's really going to cross off the majority of that area. There are other spots that we could, depending on how we feel in the time of day and I guess the timeline at which we're moving. There's a couple things, a couple places on the west side in the same mountain range as the defense mine and the Ruth mine right up in there. Between the defense and the Ruth, there's maybe 3 or 4 different places we could hit. Some of them, I mean, we just got to make a decision if they look, if we feel like it's enough to go up there, right? There are cool things up there, but it's not going to be a gold bottom. I figure we roll in Vegas to Gold Bottom. We're going to attack Gold Bottom right out the gate. We know what it has. It's just that's the one. We're going to go straight to Gold Bottom. So suppose we fly in that midday and evening is going to be Gold Bottom, and we're going to explore it, and then we're going to camp at Gold Bottom. Once the next morning, we'll be up real early. I figure we'll either go to Stockwell, depending on how early we're up, and just attack a mine then. Once we finish Stockwell, it should be shorter than Gold Bottom.
Yep.
We will go into town, Trona, so we'll go a little bit south, backtrack a little bit, refuel both vehicle, food, ice, whatever we need, bump into Red's place, sit down with him.
Oh, I'm glad. I was going to ask, is Red a priority?
100%. Get down to Red's, talk with him, actually conduct an interview. Now that I'll have equipment we can film it with.
And hopefully we can get him to repeat the Area 51 experience.
Yeah, no kidding. And then once we wrap up with Red, we're going to buzz all the way north back to 190, the road we turn off.
Yep.
But we're going to take that west, further west, and not too far from where we branch off, maybe another, I think less than an hour drive. We get into this area, which this somewhere up, according to this map, somewhere up here is Cerro Gordo.
Okay.
So this is like the Inyo mountain range coming down here, and it ends kind of like up in these hills. So we're going to be going around that mountain range and coming up through here. And there's like a section of mine up here that looks optimal. There's some stuff down here that I haven't seen anything online necessarily, like no videos, no one talking about going through them, but they are listed on different like topographical maps as like these are mines and prospects.
Have you done a satellite image inspection of the area?
Yeah, heavily.
Deposits large. You got
there are
evidence from space.
Thing is, some of it looks a little strip mine.
Yep.
But I can't quite tell. But that's not the full reason we're going, but it's something that we can just see from the road.
Yeah.
I figure this will be day 2 that so we'll get here. This will be our evening of day 2.
Okay. Can I ask what you think day 2 is going to land on as far as a day of the week? Is that going to be Sunday Or is that
It'll
going to be
be a
Saturday?
Friday or a Saturday.
Perfect.
Yep.
So we're gonna potentially come in a day sooner than or land earlier than we typically would.
Correct.
Beautiful.
Correct. Because I think there were some flights that we were looking at that left on a Thursday.
Yes.
Which in that case, though, we will do the Thursday evening, crash in Vegas, up early, and we're in the desert by what time were we at Ruth? It wasn't.
It's like 9, dude.
It was early.
Yeah, like 8 or 9.
Because we did all the grocery shopping the night before, and so we
Solid
got
move.
up at 4 a.m. and then drove out there, and so yeah, probably by 9 a.m. we were starting our day. So, that'll be day one. Whether we fly in Thursday or wake up Friday, or excuse me, fly in Friday, that evening, no matter what, is going to be Gold Bottom.
Yep.
And we're going to stop it there. The only caveat to that is if we do what we did on the second expedition, which is leave when we left Rhyolite just to camp to wake up at the next mine.
Yep.
Granted, that was much further away between Stockwell and Gold Bottom. Those aren't more than a half hour, 45 minutes. So we can make that call depending on which one we want to camp at. But camp there, have a nice canned soup dinner, and then
And this time it's not going to be 22 degrees.
it will not be. If it's September, the temperature should be optimal. I think the averages that I was looking at was between 77 and 107, which is
Beautiful.
perfect. And so once we hit this area, this is going to be like half recon, half exploring. Like we're not going to not explore them, but there is some
At this point, we
uncertainty.
should already have the Stockwell and the Gold Bottom down. And so we fed that need, right? So we hit mines. So like with the tradition of the trip, we hit our mines, they're recon. So it's like, it's okay if we're not going into more mines. So that's cool.
That's it. Now, the one thing that we are scrapping, at least I say we're scrapping, is we haven't really figured it out, but the Mohawk. We left Mohawk with this undeniable certainty that we will be back to go down that crazy
Shaft.
vertical. Yeah. And we use the fact that Chris hasn't been there to further justify us going back to that spot.
Yep.
I was talking with Spencer about that just to see where his head was in regards to going back. And both him and I were less enthused about doing it, only compared to
In the light of these other things.
Kinda.
I got you.
You know
I'm
what I
right
mean?
there.
Now, the other part of that is we're already going to go see Red, so we're going to be right there. Are we going to burn 4 hours driving back to Mohawk, pulling a rail car out of the mine, fixing it up, tying a rope, dropping down? I don't know that I'm convinced that there's much more at the bottom of that.
Right. So it would be just for the rappel and then the ascend. However, that is very time consuming. And if we have 5 guys, I mean, to save time, I would even say, even though that was something initially, I'm like, I want to be one of the guys that go down. Like kind of what you just talked about, that conversation with Spencer. I'm more along, I would skip that. If that's what we did, I would be one of the guys who stayed up top so that we could cut time on that, because I have more interest in the unknown and these other mines. You know, I would prioritize these other mines over that as well.
And another aspect to that is I have a desire to talk to Red every possible chance we get when we're out there.
I do as well. Just even just to say hey.
Just to say hi. When we finish Stockwell and Gold Bottom and maybe that third one, there will not be a mine that will take us that south. The only thing would be that Mohawk drop.
I like
so
it.
In a situation where we want to go visit him,
Yep.
we can justify it by saying, well, why don't we just drop a rope
We got
down
one
there.
in the chamber still
We
back
got
there.
it. And matter of fact, I just remember this. There are 2 mines just north of that town in the Homewood Canyon there, that one of them, he said that he tried to fish out a
cart.
mine cart and
Yep.
dropped it, and it plummeted down and it got like wedged somewhere. And so those are definitely worth walking to and seeing what's going on. But I don't know that this is going to be that trip.
It's so funny to me that the one guy we talked to in that town ends up having experience with these mines, had an interest in them when he was younger, went to all of them, went inside of them, tried to pull out a mine cart. And that was just circumstantial that guy that we had questions about, the man who talks to space,
Jay.
Jay, we wanted to ask somebody about Jay's property. Red is the man. And then at first when we were talking to Red, it's like, is half the stuff he's saying just made up? Is he embellishing? And then we get to these places, we kind of follow his advice, and it turns out everything he said aligns. It's there.
It's true. Yeah.
And so you're like, so with these other stories, I want to know, dude.
Right. Right. And I mean, there's so much in this southern part of the valley, and there's so much that I have mapped out on the northern side as well. And I want to hit every single speck that comes up on a map where it says, here's a prospect. There's so much. And my perspective on the valley has shifted in the last year, specifically that I want to explore mines, but I now have interest in Death Valley as a whole.
Yep.
So I've become more interested in the terrain, in some of the history, in some of the more structures and stuff, which kind of touches on an idea we have for the spring of 27. But if we continue searching leave no stone unturned, that mentality,
Yep.
it's going to take us 10 years to finish this southern part of the valley. And I'm not for that, or I'm not against that. I'm down for whatever everyone is equally down for. But I also, there's so much more like this. Is there another red out there that we haven't met? There's so much. We've only touched a small fraction of the valley. And this trip to me seems like if we go northwest of where we are now, that's the first step into broadening our, I guess, footprint in the valley.
Yep. But I'm excited about that. I have a lucky position when it comes to these trips, because for me, it's if I went out there with this group of guys, and we're on our way to our mine, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and the Jeep blows up, and now we're stranded out there for 4 days and we don't do anything, that's still a win for me. It does, these trips, what we do matters less to me compared to being there with this group, just being out there. So everything, when we land as a group, every single thing that happens from that point on is an additional win. So, and the crazier you get with it, the more fun it is, so.
Right. I was going over some of the stuff and going through, I've been chopping up the documentary for second and third expedition. And so I'm reliving it so much through all the footage, and honestly to the point of it's less interesting because just that in the editing suite. But it's so interesting that we've done a fair amount of this stuff and we've had zero catastrophic situations happen. And it really is inevitable that something at some point will go wrong.
Yep.
Now, you could argue some of the vehicle troubles we've had, but
Not catastrophic.
not catastrophic. Could have been, but not catastrophic.
Even in the event we're stranded out there because we don't have a replacement tire, still not catastrophic.
No.
Doesn't, it's inconvenient,
Right.
but not
Right.
catastrophic. And yes, inevitably, we will be faced with a situation that takes us to a whole nother level of response. And I'm not worried about when that happens. I'm not. A cool thing about this group is I have beyond 100% trust in each of you guys. Even if you're making the wrong decision, because we are just trying to make a decision, I trust everyone individually enough to accept the outcome of anything without holding any malice or any looking back, no, because everyone's got a level head, and no, we don't know everything. We're not the most experienced. We're going out here to gain experience, to gain knowledge. And so like in the event, like that's what we're there for. So I want to be a part of that. I don't want something truly catastrophic, but in the event, like I think we're capable. I really do. I think we are very capable.
I think there's so much to these trips that it's not just, can you hike far? It's not an endurance game. It's like, that's part of it, but it's not, we're going to this place to hike in Death Valley. There's also the camping in atrocious conditions, whether it's heat, whether it's cold.
So it's being
you're on
comfortable,
rock,
being
yeah, you're, there's the rope work. That's its own skill set in of itself. I should say it's its own, like it has the knowledge required to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you put, and you could really go on and on of different things that I guess prerequisite, like abilities to have to do the whole trip. And when you put all that together and you look at each one of those items is vulnerable to its own unique set of problems or situations that can arise.
Yep.
And when you stack 4, 5, or 6 of those into one trip, it's like, okay, there is no room for phoning it in or being careless, or like it demands attention and it demands, a decision in some situations where it's like, okay, we can stand here and, visually assess the structural integrity of a ladder for 3 days, but we are on some time sensitivity to, we've got things day by day, and it really does require either someone to say, like, I'll be the guy to go up this ladder and see what it's about, or, we get, the time in Ruth on our most recent, on the third expedition, where I went up the ladder and I'm looking at this second ladder going up, and I'm thinking, I don't really know if this is the one. And I was hesitating it more because that was the very first endeavor of the trip. And I'm like, if we throw in the towel on this right out the gate, we're going to quickly, like, I don't want to risk slipping back into the failure that was Expedition 2, which was why we were back at the Ruth Mine in the first place. And so I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, we might, I don't want to be the guy to be like, nope, this isn't the one. Like, it's too this, it's too that, like, whatever. I remember I came down, I'm like, I just, I was left with uncertainty about the whole thing. And I'm like, Spencer, you got to go, someone go up. And so Spencer went up, And I mean, I think my hesitation was pretty clear to you guys, or at least my uncertainty about doing it. But I was like, I'm not going to be so quick as to write it off.
I don't know if you've watched some of that footage, but the uncertainty made a lot of sense watching you assess it from where we were at. Like you could tell it was sketchy. So that, helped that decision.
Mm-hmm. You know, and Spencer went up there, and I'm like, we need a second opinion on this, because I don't want to immediately just like knife our trip with a more like poor morale, because the first thing that we had to do on our list of places to go in the mine, I'm like, after 10 seconds of looking at it, be like, this just isn't it. I'm like, we gotta make this sketchy move to get to this ladder, of which doesn't seem like it's hung like attached to anything, and there's no way to get a rope fixed anywhere. That being said, one thing we didn't consider was we could have just drilled an anchor into the wall.
But here's
right. Did we have all that equipment?
No, we did not have bolting equipment.
No.
It was me, you, and Spencer. I did not bring any.
No. But that would be the only solution to get up to that spot.
Yep.
The way I see it. Go ahead.
But so that you have and this is where it's decision making and it's all situational. You were weighing the consequences of not doing it and not pushing through to see, trying harder to make it happen, so that we can not have any regret or any questions against, okay, we're pushing too hard and we made a mistake and it's the first run and now someone fell and now the whole trip is a wash. So there's that. And every decision in those minds, it's a balance of those two things. When it's sketchy, you're like, do we want to have regret or do we want to walk out of here? And then you find the balance. But that's what's sweet about collectively being able to assess. And that's why, I didn't climb that ladder, but I trusted both of yours, you and Spencer's assessment. That was all I needed.
Mm-hmm. And when he said it wasn't the one, I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
now, I'm like,
yeah, I'm not.
Do I have my discernment in check, or am
Yeah.
I being way too timid right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't come out here expecting the easiest ladder situation. There's a reason we didn't do it last time, but I also I know I'm much more conservative on this type of stuff. I'm probably not the best first guy to give an assessment. I think maybe Spencer is somewhere in the middle on the spectrum.
And on that, though, I would personally like to lean towards the influence of the guy who is the most unsure, just as a safety standard.
Yeah, 100%. I know what you mean. And that's the perk of having multiple opinions and considerations on a problem in front of us. And when we do some of the other mines, like Stockwell has a vertical system that's almost all timber going up.
It's awesome.
So cool.
It's
dude.
so cool.
So cool. And I'm most looking forward to that. But eventually, when it's almost you spiral up almost in a way. You get to a point where it goes back to an unorthodox part of the mine, and you and Spencer had a maneuver you had to make over a large pit that I did not do. I stayed at the top there, and when you guys got back, you had a very, very serious consideration on this spot. Going back, that spot's going to be there. The solutions to get over it, because you guys went over it, but I recall there was even hesitation between you guys. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's the first time nerves because you can look at something and you can assess it, but you're looking at old timbering that's been there for however, decades upon decades, century possibly, if not more. And you can only inspect it visually so much. There's an integrity that is factual to this piece, and the only way to test it is to get on it. So yeah, I remember crawling over this thing, that first board, and being like,
I want you to explain, like walk through what that was.
okay, the
Like
setup.
What were the board situation? What's beneath? Like what's around? Like explain the situation here.
So we had been working our way up this shaft that had a ladder platform set up out of timbering. It was, imagine if you built a tree fort that just kept going up and up and up, and you just had these ladders that went to platform to board crossover, but it all stayed within almost like a 12 by 12 box, and you kind of just worked your way up and around. And we get to this level where that shaft shifted a little bit. So the one we came up ended, but there was a parallel, vertical shaft, one that ran horizontally next to the other one that had no timbering.
Vertically or
Vertically.
It ran vertically
right next to the one we climbed up.
Okay.
There was
two parallel verticals.
Yep.
One with timbering, one without.
One with not. But then once you got to the top of where we made it to, the ladder system shifted over top of the one that had no timbering below, and you had to cross like a 2x10 board to get to it over maybe 6 to 8 feet. And the board is in the dirt, and it's kind of hard to tell. There's a lot of dirt that kind of fell from above onto it. You can't really tell how much of the lip of that board is even over the next board. So, and it goes into the dirt. You can't see where it starts, and it's covered in dirt, and it's a little, as you're crawling on it, dirt's falling off of it, and you're stirring stuff up, and you're wondering, man, I hope this stays right here. So then we get to that, and then it starts to work up again. But for that first initial part, once you get to the structure, there's not a whole lot beneath you to stop you if you fell at that moment. So you cross to the support beams, but the platforms haven't started yet, and you have to there's a shaft that runs horizontally off. Let's just call it to the right, and you have to get into that shaft and then bounce back up onto the platforms to continue up. But it's kind of a stretch. To get into that shaft, it slopes very steeply towards the platform you're on. There's a gap that leads between the board you're standing on into the abyss, and you kind of have to take a leap of faith and there's a board or a bar, I can't remember what it was, that you can kind of grab onto for support. And so you just got to step over that abyss, and that's terrifying. We did it, and then this goes back to like trusting our agility, remembering what you're capable of, and it's the knowledge that this exists, which is hindering you, but it's as simple. The actual action is as simple as like me. If I wanted to step across this chair to that one, what makes that scary is that there's 300 feet below me. But really, I'm more than capable of standing on this chair and stepping across to that one. So that's what it's kind of like. I don't even think it is as significant as a gap as between us. So it might be 2 or 3 feet, but in the moment it feels like a mile. But it really isn't. So then we trusted ourselves and we moved forward. We kind of pushed through that. We assessed it. We're like, no, we can do this. Kind of like when we went down to the bottom of the roof, when we got to that situation where we had to cross from the tie, from the elevator shaft. We had to get off of the ladder, go down a railroad tie, and then come back onto it. That was sketchy, but we're all more than capable of doing that on a playground with 300% confidence. It's the potential of what could, that's what, is terrifying. But no, we got it. And so this part of that shaft it's the same thing, I think. And if we're not going to cross that point, we shouldn't go back.
I agree. Right.
But then once you get back onto it, on that second part, it's very similar to what we first came up. And so it's nothing. And then it leads to several more levels. And me and Spencer saw 2. We went up to the next one. Then we found a ladder that went up to another level. And that ladder is pretty crazy. It's the steepest ladder we've ever been on it, because most of these ladders, they have a slight slant to them. This ladder's it feels almost like you're leaning back. It is straight up and down. So if you have a backpack on, you're really like, whoa, I feel the pull of gravity a little bit more, because it's not allowing your weight to come into the angle. Like it's pulling you off the ladder. But you get up to that level, and then there's a lot there, and we weren't able to hit all of it because we were like, we separated at this point. We have to come back. We have to regroup and then exit. So this was like we're just kind of doing tiny little recon. But the more recon we did, the more we realized that there's more up there. So on that second level from where we separated, there's still just, first of all, there's more stuff than I've ever seen in a mine up there on that level. There's just all kinds of stuff. Mine carts, tins, boxes, garbage mounds, material mounds. Like, it's pretty crazy. And there's so much of it that some of the shafts some of the tunnels they're filled up with it to where there's only a couple feet of clearance to the ceiling because there's just so much stuff up there. But then coming off the sides are the chutes coming down back into that. So it's like, there's another level, at least one, and there's a dozen chutes coming in. So it's like, what's up there?
Right. Something's up there. Did you see from that level another way to go up?
We didn't get to that. We made it 100 feet into it. There's a lot going on. There's a lot. We were like, what do? We identify routes, and then we usually do the left route first as a group, but we're not as a group, and we don't have time to explore. So we started finding so many possibilities. We're like, this is where we call it.
Yeah.
We can't be separated for much longer because this will be an issue. We had no comms because we got too far away for our radios to work. So we were constantly thinking about your position being separated and wondering timeline. So the longer that we're away, it allows for you to wonder what happened. And we wanted to mitigate that because that's not cool at all. It's unfair.
Which, kind of did happen a little bit. So when we split up, you guys went up, and I can't remember exactly, but it was either 5 or 10 minutes. But there was an agreed upon time that you would be back by, like within 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, no problem. Like you said, the radios, we're way out of distance. Not even distance, it's just rock. There's no way for the radios to connect. And so it wasn't, when you're 40 feet away that we have zero comms. And so, you guys are doing your thing. Time is moving at a different pace for you than it is me, especially sitting there in the dead silence in the blackest darkness ever. And I'm just sitting there. There's a faint glow of like the green light off my helmet, or maybe a glow stick I think I had on me. But I was sitting there, and I'd set my stopwatch, just fired it up. And it was, 15 minutes. And just, I'm waiting to hear pebbles coming down the chutes. I'm waiting to see like a quick flash of a headlamp, or sometimes you can hear further than, just the way the sound can
bounce around.
And it's radio silent. And so 20 minutes, and I'm like, there was never a part of me that actually thought something went wrong, because I figured if something went wrong, I probably would have heard that. There would have been, like, if there was any reason, like
something significant shifted
something
in the
significant.
mind.
If something happened to both of you, it would have been something like something gave out, and I would have heard that.
And that tuning fork, which was that rod sticking out of the wall, really put it into perspective how little disturbance can be translated through the rock. Like a little disturbance as we climbed up the ladder and just sat there, as someone else was climbing up the ladder, that rod
was vibrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never really got to the point of thinking that something was wrong. I just think you guys lost track of time. And that's pretty much what happened, because I think when you guys got back, I may have even asked you how long you feel like it's been. And you guys were like, 10 minutes. And I'm like, it's been almost a half hour. And
had it been?
It was a lot. It was, I think it was like 20 something
minutes. Going to
minutes.
check the GoPro because we were like dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Because, and if you go back and you watch and you listen to the dialogue of me and Spencer's travels up there in the GoPro footage, after 5 minutes, the dialogue turned into us discussing when do we go back. And then we're excited. We're giddy. I'm giggling. I'm like, dude, there's another one. Dude, there's another one. Spencer's like, dude, there's more over here. And we're going, and we're both like, and then we're also discussing like, okay, but like, when do we call it? When do we call it? Because we have to go back. And we're like, but then we'd find something. He's like, oh, let's just check this out a little bit more. And then we're like, okay, we should go back. But then it's like, oh, is that a ladder? Let's go to, and then finally we called it. And it literally felt for us like it was 5 to 10. For you, it felt like it was an hour. Turns out a half hour. And it was so far off for us because it felt like we were so fast. Mm-hmm. We were not.
Mm-mm. And it started to make me ask those questions about like, okay, suppose something did go wrong.
What is my move?
What's my move?
Do I investigate?
Yeah.
Or do I just bail now and call it in?
Right. And I mean, that's something that I think there ought to be, and we've even talked about this, but now that we're bringing it up now, something that is more concrete as far as a protocol for us.
Yes.
You can't, of course, consider every single possible scenario because of how unknown it is, but I'd say there's 3 big ones. A medical, which would probably be one person, meaning like one person either falls off and breaks their hip or something. So a single person medical issue. And then I'd say another one is, of course, any sort of mind collapse. And then maybe a third one would be, I feel like those first 2 are probably the most probable.
Yep.
With the medical being the first one. I really don't have much of a concern for a collapse as far as rock collapse goes.
Yep.
I just don't think we're tampering with the rock enough to do that. So what then is the protocol for each one, right? If Chris is out there, then we just, whatever Chris says goes as far as a medical thing.
If you want to know how much you can disturb a mind, watch Ghost Town Living. It's okay. It can take it.
It can take it. So, if though, we agreed after the Stockwell, unless there are 4 people and 2 people split up, that's the only appropriate time to split up. But
you can't leave someone by themselves.
The 1 and 2 thing was not the move.
It's not fair. It isn't fair.
In what context?
In 2 contexts. Leaving somebody behind because you wanted to see something more is slightly selfish. Slightly. Unless it's agreed upon recon, there's parameters. But hearing and realizing the potential to put that person in just the worst spot to have to make a serious decision when timeframes aren't met, that's not fair to do to a single individual. That's too much responsibility.
Yeah. You know, in that situation specifically, for context, I wasn't left behind like in a way of, I know you said it's selfish. I made that decision and there was no other, like, you guys,
I
you
understand
were
that.
just like, that's the
Our
decision you made.
decision, well, moving forward in that scenario, 3-man, one's not in, all 3 are out.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right. Now, in that situation, I would have just pushed forward. But the option is just, I'm just going to like, that was toward the end of the trip. And I remember
So many
like
factors.
I was out of it in a lot of ways.
Exhausted, the bag, the equipment.
Like
mentally,
everything.
you will say mentally you weren't 100% sharp there because you had so much. There's other factors on your mind, and you were exhausted. So like there's a lot going on. It wasn't that you weren't able to go on. You weren't capable of furthering into the mine. There was a lot going on. You were just gassed, and you're like, you had the weight of the circumstances of the Ruth, which there was a lot there on your end, with your equipment specifically, just the loss of the equipment, the footage, the ability to film more, which is a big part of the trip for you. So it's like it just ripped away part of the trip that you enjoy, and that sucks. So there's a lot going on there. I get that,
There was a lot. I did get the footage off from the camera.
but you weren't sure at the moment whether
That's
you
true.
could or not.
I did not know if
So
the
you
footage
didn't have that
survived.
confidence. So that stress was
That's
still
true.
there in the back of your mind.
True.
So that was affecting that particular situation at that point in time.
Right. And to that point, I explore the mines to document us exploring the mines. And because that was a recon, and because I didn't have a camera, but because that was a recon trip, I knew at that point we are coming back here. We're definitely doing Gold Bottom. We're gonna go back to this one, and I know I'm gonna be back to film it. And so knowing I was gonna be back for that was even more of a reason. Like it didn't provoke. That wasn't a reason to like outweigh my mental fatigue. It wasn't like, well, we're never going to be back. Like, I'm just going to push through. But I'm like, we're going to be back. We didn't even plan to explore this one as far as like, we didn't have any equipment. We just threw like a backpack with the bare essentials and went in. And so we got to that point. I passed the point of we're definitely coming back. And so I hit that mental wall a little bit, and I'm like, it wasn't a crazy, like I didn't crash out or have some big crisis, but just there was just something in my mind when we got up to that top one, and just seeing kind of where it was going and how to get there. And you said something about that spot that indicated like it's a little like demanding, and I'm like, I think my cup's filled for this trip.
And when are mistakes made?
Pushing that line. Yeah. Crossing
No one needs to push that line. We're not here to be stupid. We're here to come home, have a good time and come home. So, I mean, it should be set in stone. If anybody hits that line, we support that person. No matter who they are and when it is, we support them to the best of our ability to then make an adjustment, maybe even to the itinerary.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about like the type of person we want in these mines with us. And you want someone who's sharp, who's agile, who's good in a crisis situation, that has the capability to handle something like that. And the second those decision-making paradigms are affected, it becomes a like a hazard, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a negative. There's potential for
A liability.
a liability. Yes, it's a liability. The second you start losing the edge, liability.
And that can infect
Anyone.
it infects the whole group.
Yep.
Right. It's not, I look at these trips and I look at what we're doing and I'm considering everyone.
Yep.
When, I guess my decision making happens mostly in the pre-trip planning, figuring out where we're going to go and some of that logistic. And the whole time I'm considering us as a group doing this. What is that going to take? Are there any circumstances about it that put any one person in some sort of a, situation? I guess, is there any one unique aspect to something that would infringe on someone in a specific way, right? And that hardly comes up, but there are certain things that's like, not even just from an ability standpoint, but from an interest standpoint.
Yep.
I'm like, there's places that I'm like, this would be cool to go to, but we're going to go there, we're going to look at it, and it's a tourist destination. It's not what we're there to do.
Yep.
And I'm like, it could be that me and you want to go see this thing, but Chris and Spencer are just like, we are not really about that, right? And so
Right.
I'm like, let's, cross that off the list. That's no longer a priority. What is the thing that is going to meet all of the needs and desires of every person and we unanimously want the same, we have the same goal, right? And that goal for us is we want to explore this mine completely. And we've tested that goal as far as how much we actually want to with the Ruth mine, because it brought us back to do it. And I know Chris still loses sleep having not been able to do that. Now, he does find some, I guess, comfort in the fact that our group has done it collectively, but he never really got the thrill.
It's painful.
It sucks, dude.
I imagine myself in his shoes. There's now a piece missing in an experience, that I don't get to share in, that I would wish I was there, for the rest of my life. It'd be just a little sliver of something going, man, I wasn't a part of that. I wasn't there for that story. So and this is what our group is doing. So we talk about it all the time. So every time that particular trip is brought up, that little sliver is going to be like, that kind of.
Mm-hmm. And too, like the 20% of the mine that we did on Expedition 2 was pretty lame compared to the 80% that we went to.
Yeah, the second
like,
you go through that hole and down the ladder to that crazy ladder
it was
system.
unreal. It was similar to Stockwell.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier.
With that timbering system going down, and then it just, dude, every level after that, it's like it literally was a game where it was a different like mode of getting down. The first one was like that weird ladder to the
plank over
boards,
bottomless,
over the
that
abyss.
2x12 that was like 20 foot long, and then
then
had
you
the
did the-
rail
yeah.
that was just held on by a sliver, and you're like, I can't use this.
Yeah. And then you finish the last part of it with that winding timbering section going down.
Yeah, so cool.
And when you get there, it was the longest ladder section we've ever gone down.
Yep.
And that took us like 10 minutes to get down. I lost a radio on that. Spencer ended up finding it on our way up, but it took a crash and I don't know where he found it because we couldn't even get it to like show up trying to like
to chirp or anything.
And so, and then when we got to that one, that final stretch to the flood. I mean, you talked about that, dude. You know, one of the things I wanted to ask you, because I'm curious if it's, I mean, this I'm kind of showing my cards now, but I was gonna ask you what in our trips has been what you would say one of the more like scary situations we've been in. Maybe scary is not the right word because I think it has a sense of like I don't know that we've done something that's like inherently scary. It's more so just something that's just like pushing the line.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want real quick on that last section, because that's what I would say mine is having to go down that entire thing. And there was that moment where you had to step off the ladder and do that thing. But I think because that was there, we forget that the rest of that ladder was almost not much, like was not much better as far as
including the
like
bottom 14 feet
was
where there's
bad.
no ladder.
It was
Remember
bad.
we went down that
it was
like
that pipe, that water pipe, and it wasn't really connected to anything.
No.
It was connected at the bottom. So the more you went up, the more the more play it had. And there's rocks falling down.
Because you move it and it just unleashes
everything.
stones.
And you know, when you talk about that risk assessment too, there's a formula that is that exists where risk assessment can be split into essentially two considerations if you want to objectively consider risk in a situation. The first thing is, what is the consequence if this thing goes wrong, right? So let's just say black and white, it goes right or it goes wrong. What is the consequence of it going wrong? In that situation, it was a very severe consequence, right?
Yeah.
Like the drop was severe. The bottom was severe as far as what you would fall on and then fall into. There was the
normally flood. If you got trapped in a cave-in situation, there's air pockets. There's a chance you could be on one. If you might be on one side of the cave-in or the other, but in this circumstance, if you're on one side over the other, one side was water, you're gonna drown. If you get shoved into that, you're not living, you're drowning. In other places in a mine where that could happen, you could be pinned, you could be buried, you can be dug out, and you'd still be alive. That doesn't work in water. That's the part of that one. Like if anything came in and we shifted into that thing and we can't, even once let's just say there is a way that there wasn't water and it happened and there was a route to find out, when you get pushed into that water, you are blind. You no longer have the ability to see and find that route. You know what I mean? Even if there was one that you could have worked out,
right?
You're going to drown.
You're going to drown. So we consider the consequences to be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But then you got to consider the other part of it, which is, well, what is the probability of that consequence happening? And you touched on it a little bit, which is, use the illustration of jumping from that chair to this chair. You're not any less capable of doing that when you're in the mine. It's just that there was a pit below you.
Yeah.
So in the same way on this final stretch of the elevator shaft, at least to the flood, the risk assessment was, well, the consequence is severe, but the probability is very low because this is we are more than capable of doing this thing.
Yes.
It just wasn't like we never had any less point of contact on something than we would on a ladder.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
It was just different.
2 hands, 2 feet.
That's it. Times. But it was just it wasn't a ladder. It was like just the beam. But you could argue that beam, you could almost make a case for that having more
structural
integrity than the ladder. We were never on the beam with more than one person, right?
Yep.
The ladders, now we did our best to put some distance, but even when there's a guy on a ladder section on top of you, right? He might not mess your ladder up and knock it free, but
There's combined weight
know,
on that structure.
and this was the first time that I really understood the reason why we have helmets, because my helmet got torn up. There's a part in the footage. My GoPro was running, or was it? Yeah, we all had the GoPros running.
Yep.
I had the chest rig, so you don't really see my reaction like from a visual standpoint, but you hear. But I took a rock to the head,
To the dome,
and it smacked my helmet and almost like offset it a little bit. Yeah, and I thought, dude, that would have killed me.
Yeah,
that would have killed me. And the whole, you're looking straight ahead, there's piled on with debris, and this is after the water catastrophe, so I'm wet and everything's it's terrible.
What if that one, it hit your helmet? Honestly, that was lucky. If that hit your shoulder, that could have been done damage even.
Yeah.
So like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That was definitely, back to my question to you, which is, what was, in your opinion, a moment that you felt you were in, I guess, maybe the most danger or the most scared, or it demanded like all of your attention to detail? And that was certainly mine in every which way.
I wish you didn't ask me this question, because I don't. I hate how this answer is going to sound. I haven't had one yet. I've had moments where adrenaline was high, but I didn't question the situation in a standpoint of where I've regretted being in it.
So then what is that situation that your adrenaline was as high?
So my adrenaline, to be honest, I should leave this part out. In that situation, I was annoyed. Spencer and you were ready to get out of there, and you wouldn't slow down. And I was annoyed, and I kept telling you guys to slow down. And this is before your bag went in the water. You were ready to get out of there, and you throw your bag up. And I was telling you guys, like, I think hopefully the audio's in there, but hopefully I was communicating what I was thinking, but it was, slow down, or wait. I was asking you guys to wait for me to get to a certain point, and you didn't. And I was upset that you didn't. And then your bag fell in, and I was just like, and then that created a situation that made it a little more intense. So then you're going back down to save the bag, going down to the place that you were just trying to evac from. So then the risk assessment of that place of the reason you were trying to get out of there, you just threw that to the wind to go save the bag. And I can't move now because I was kicking rocks loose, and I wanted you guys to stay there until I stopped kicking rocks loose and got to a point where I couldn't. So now I was on that point, but I was on that pole, and anytime I moved, rocks fell. And now you and Spencer are directly underneath me, and I couldn't move. And I was like, I was frustrated in that moment. I really was, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't wah. Dude, you know what I mean? Like, it's circumstantial. No one is at fault there. So it's not big. But in that situation, it was not like, for you, it's catastrophic because of your gear. I think Spencer was uneasy with that spot. You were uneasy with that spot. I recognized the potential for that spot to have characteristics that we should be careful with, but I wasn't ever like scared of it.
I think in the moment, of course, being tainted with the bag situation, it just kind of tainted everything for me.
Yep.
Because I was stoked to be down there. I was stoked to actually like get to the very bottom of this mine. it all just went south after that.
Yeah, it did. And man, so what that did to me now is like from that moment forward, I was it's not that I was worried about you. I was bummed for you from that point on. I'm just thinking like, what if I was in your shoes? Like what that would do to me. Like that's a lot. There's a lot going on there. And I just felt like, it sucks that this happened. Cause it put a damper on like all of us in that moment. And we're just like, you're soaked. Your bag's soaked. You're carrying this wet bag out. And it just sucks. That sucks. And then we get out, dude, and you're not saying much the whole way out because you're focused on just getting out. You get out, not saying much. You lay your stuff out. And nothing was really said until the stuff was in the sun. All the wet stuff was in the sun, and we cracked some cans we were like, all right, let's just sit back and let everything that happened sink in now. And we had it over some cans of soup, dude. And the sun was out, it was in our face. It felt good. The wind, the canyons, the mountains. It was after that scenario that happened, like it was just the perfect meditation to the environment, what was there for us. But so that situation, it was intense, it was unfortunate. I didn't think it was the sketchiest part of that part for me was when I learned the idea, like I had the idea for the first time of the chair scenario, about what am I capable of, was when we crossed that ladder to the railroad tie and down back onto the ladder. Right then, that idea, that metaphor was there. Like, because when I was the first one to that point and I decided whether I wanted to do it or not. And that's what I told myself. And from then on, it's like, I think it's a pretty solid thing to weigh in on. Like, no, why am I questioning this? Am I questioning the situation? Is there really something that could be is there a factor that could cause something catastrophic, or I'm just scared of the drop, No, I got hands that I can climb down this railroad tie. But anyway, so that scenario wasn't it. I'm okay with heights and sketchy situations when I can at least have one hand or I'm attached to something. No problem. I have something that I can trust. Remove something that I can trust, that's when I'm nervous. In the Stockwell, crossing that board after we went up and we had to shift that board, that's where I felt the most sketchy. I can't remember which mine it was in, where we saw there was I had to crawl across this like board to kind of see if it went on. And it was just a 2x12 plank, maybe 10 foot long, nothing on like a drop beneath. And I remember when I crawled, that got me the most. Because there was nothing. If something gave way on that board, that was it. There's nothing I could do about it. Those are the situations that make me feel scared.
And the problem with those are the moments when you realize this is where most people who come here would turn around. So what's beyond this? Because if we can get past this, it could be even further into an untouched area as far as modern explorers will go, and that's where it gets like we saw recent quote unquote evidence of people in the Ruth mine as we went down, whether that's like a Coke can or something, but I'm almost certain nobody has gone to that flood level like we did.
Right.
Especially with the condition of the ladders and the buildup of debris on the ladders, like the ladder rungs.
Yep.
And there would be no reason to be honest with you. We needed that thrill. We needed to touch the water to be at the bottom. We can't look down.
We needed to know there wasn't anything else left to do.
That's it.
That's what it was. We needed to
That's it.
check off the 100% mark.
Right. And clearly that led to its own thing. But um, just to wrap up, spring of 27, we're looking at.
I got 15 minutes.
Yeah, I got to pee, but.
Me too.
We're looking at a different type of trip.
Yep.
More of the hiking, but not hiking to hike. There's a story of an old miner dude that lived out in the middle of the Inyo Mountains, so far away from civilization, and there's no traditional trail that leads to this guy's place. He had along this canyon route different like shelters that he would just crash at on his way up. And there's very little documented about this guy as far as why he decided to do it. This was back in like, I don't even know, 40, 50 years ago, like the 19 somethings. But all that to say, it's a crazy like mountaineering feat to get to these places. We got to hike basically from the west side of the Inyos. We got to hike up the mountains and then hike down the east side, which requires a bunch of rappelling down waterfalls to get down to these places. It's honestly, in the little amount of research I've done, it's uncertain as to how he got through all of these different waterfalls. There's one recording that I need to listen to the full thing of some person just recording this guy in like the 80s or something about what his deal was. And he's an old man at this point, and he mentioned like he had ladders that he made to get down some of these spots. But in some other videos of people, well, one guy specifically going on this hike, he's like, I don't really know how he would have had a ladder to get down all of these sections. So there's a lot of stuff surrounding that, a lot of mystery, and that's kind of what intrigues us about it. You don't have, it's not on all trails where you can just pull it up. Like I've found 2 out of the 6 spots that he camped out at on satellite map, and the only reason that I'm certain they are the spots is because you can frankly see like some of the stone structure that he built. But the problem is some of the other spots that he stayed at they're like little tiny mines that go in like 15 feet. So you never see it from
Right.
a satellite map. So part of that will look like either us talking to people who have done it and seeing if they're willing to give any insight to the hike. But if we go in totally blind, it's really going to be a full on like using our own map to figure out the best routes and using a drone, I guess, to try to see if we can find this guy's spots. But that sounds like it's going to be something in spring of 27. There's also in that same general proximity, close enough, there is a plane wreck way up in the mountains of an old CIA plane that crashed.
That'd be pretty sweet to see.
That it would just be cool. Again, similar to the gold miners' houses, there's no traditional route to this. A lot of, Onyx will show at least like a dotted 2-track or something that will go up to these places. These ones aren't even listed at all. Like you can find the defense mine with Onyx and it kind of has like a little mine sign. These are completely just unlisted. I went to Cal Topo. I went to all these different places and it's nowhere there. So it's a very untouched, to my knowledge, aspect.
Yes, that's
of
awesome.
It.
That's cool. There's a historical factor. There's the terrain part, which requires skill to descend and ascend in and out of this canyon. It's going to be beautiful. That's going to be insane. That's going to be awesome. And then there's it's an adventure. That's what we're about, and I'm all about it. I'm excited. Excited.
That's it. So there's going to be more of that, but September of 26 is our projected date. There's 2 weekends that we're looking at, just bouncing between the 2 of them. We're going to crush the Gold Bottom, the Stockwell, and we've got a plan for
Some recon.
for some recon. Visit Red. Hopefully he's still kicking. And
Maybe talk to a
Yeah.
realtor, see how much we can pick up Jay's place for.
yeah,
Base camp.
yeah. Okay, that'd be the base camp, dude. We could
Talk
do
to
that.
space. Dude.
Talk to
Talk
space,
to
dude.
space.
Talk to space. So that being said, we'll wrap it.